on 3 questions this week. Again, we answer only 1 question. So this 1 question was generated by a user named Peem on our YouTube channel on our latest video. So I decided to answer it in this week's video. So the question is, how do we approach digital advertising for immediate consumption? For example, let's say a cafe like Starbucks serving coffee and offering a service versus non-immediate consumption like 3PL companies or third-party logistics companies focused on services such as DHL as an example. So the way that I would approach this question when we talk about immediate versus non-immediate consumption, we're looking at B2B or B2C. So that stands for business to business type transactions and relationships versus business to consumer type transactions and relationships. So the way that I like to look at it, and it's been touted by many marketing experts online, is that it's no longer B2B or B2C. It's actually, as it's always been, P2P or person to person or H to H, human to human. Because at the end of the day, we are dealing with humans when it comes to business. So the way that I view it would be to split it into 2 types of contexts. So we're dealing with humans, but the 2 types of context would be a business type context and a personal context. So when we look at B2B or a business context, we're looking at a much longer sales cycle when it comes to dealing with customers. And we're looking at different types of objectives as well, where if we're looking to generate business in a business context, we're looking to prospect the right people, generate leads for our sales team, and drive long-term engagements, which can take a much longer time to obtain. If we're looking at the personal context, we're looking at driving consumers down the funnel from awareness to consideration and then eventually to final sale. And it's got a much shorter sales cycle. And when we look at the differences between the 2 as well, in the business context, we're looking at longer term arrangements, perhaps larger sums of money versus low to middle ticket items when we're looking at the personal context. So at the heart of marketing, we're looking to understand who are your customers. And if we understand who our customers are, we can then develop the right communication messages to resonate with them and then find appropriate mediums to find them on. So when it comes to understanding who your customers are, first and foremost, in either context, you want to either be conducting research or surveys to find out who are these people, what are their demographics, where are they located, where do they hang out, what do they do, what kind of problems do they have. You want to then be able to develop personas on these people based on the research, or even utilizing your existing customer data to define who your target audience is. So when we're looking at the business context, some examples of, as we're talking about 3PL companies or third-party logistics companies, we're looking at targeting people, or basically their customers would be people like operations managers, supply chain managers, sourcing and procurement type functions, with the final decision maker potentially being the CEO or someone at the C level. In the personal context, from the Starbucks point of view, in terms of coffee, we're looking at busy professional, the student, busy moms, coffee lovers. So these would be some examples of the type of personas that we'd be looking to develop upon in order to enhance our communication. So the idea of personas in this case, both contexts, we're looking at determining, who are they, what are their issues, what are their objectives in life, at work, and what they just do on a day-to-day basis. What goals do they have and what problems do they have? So if we understand the consumer drives or what motivates them, is the key to successful communication of your product or service, whether it's in the personal or business context. So when we communicate, let's say in the business context, to resonate our messaging and our marketing, and potentially, during the sales process as well, 3PLs are ideally looking to help their customers get their products out and delivered faster, cheaper, and of course provide excellent customer service, which ties into certain processes and policies about potentially how they handle lost goods. And generally the audiences in the business context are looking to seek efficiency and expertise in that business context. So when you're marketing or even in your sales process, this is typically the objectives of the people that you're dealing with in that context. So it's typically, the purchase process is quite, rational and logic driven. And when we're looking at the personal context, or in comparison and relating it back to Starbucks again, you get people with objectives like, I want to get a caffeine boost in the morning, or even I want to try some of those new flavorful coffees that Starbucks comes out with during Christmas with their various teas and fun coffees that they make. The consumer audience and their objectives are typically around seeking deals and getting entertainment. So the consumer or personal context, consumer choices are typically emotionally triggered. Some examples would be like hunger, desire, status, costs, and we'll get into the human drives as to what motivates people. So when you're communicating, the closer you can tie your core message to these 5 human drives, the more likely you are to succeed in really resonating with people and touching or catering to their needs. So you also want to explore how your product and service can help their issues. So when you're communicating, you want to be providing solutions to whatever their needs are. So you want to be communicating, to their needs, the benefits and value to the customer. So if we're looking again at the business context from a 3PL point of view, you often want to, your customer often wants to, that person probably has a boss and they just want to be the hero. They want to be the person that makes the right choices, makes the right decisions in terms of finding new partners in order to improve business efficiencies, reduce costs, and help them hit their KPIs. So then they can be promoted or, look good to their boss and sort of like win that sort of influence and be recognized as a person who does very well in terms of their work context and their business context. In comparison to the personal context, when we're looking at Starbucks, again, customers just want to enjoy themselves, be happy with their purchase and have it adequately fill their needs at that time, whatever they may be when it comes to their objectives, when it comes to purchasing coffee, whether it's to have fun, try new things, snap it on social media, or actually genuinely enjoy coffee and enjoy the feelings that one gets from a caffeine boost. So we talked about understanding your customer, understanding their personal objectives in the various contexts. So how do we communicate our key messages once we've identified who our consumers are, what their objectives are, and what their needs are, so that we can resonate with them? In the business context, we're looking at communicating the benefits of the product or service to the company or individual, which typically requires little to no emotion. It's very much based around information, and it's more complex and longer term, obviously, hence the need for it to be more informative, since the people that you deal with have to make complex decisions which require multiple stakeholders, and there needs to be a high level of information in order for there to be trust and potentially investment. So typically the business context crowd wants information and the ability to have a close relationship with brands, and they want to be educated and provided consultative expertise within that particular context. And in the case of it being a third-party logistics provider, you want to be communicating to the ops manager or the logistics or supply chain managers, why you are the best company to hire in terms of the benefits and how it's going to potentially save their company money in the future and make them look awesome within their own company. In the personal context, when you're focusing on products, especially like Starbucks coffee, you want to focus on its potential benefits. That would tie into the caffeine, lots of vitamin Bs, and potentially, the sort of like lifestyle that this coffee tunes into and how it helps you express yourself through the products and brands that you interact with. And the messaging is typically more emotional, simpler, and easier to consume. So we talked about the 5 core human drives that influence human behavior. So this was obtained from a book I recently read, The Personal MBA by Joshua Kaufman. So the closer that a business ties themselves to these 5 core messages, the more their potential customers can resonate with those messages, and the higher chance of success you have in terms of clearly communicating what you want to get across to your target audience in the personal business context. So, the first one is drive to acquire, the desire to collect material and immaterial things like a car or influence. The drive to bond is the second one, the desire to be loved and feel valued in our relationships with others. Could even be colleagues at work potentially. The drive to learn, the desire to satisfy our curiosity. The fourth one, drive to defend, the desire to protect ourselves, our loved ones, and our property. This is where certain security industries could come in. The drive to feel, the desire for emotional experiences like pleasure or excitement, especially drinking a Starbucks coffee at times. So, how do we tie this into, how we market ourselves in the two different contexts? Especially with the messaging, you want to, in the short term, you might want to offer a buy one, get one free to drive immediate action or a direct response for purchase, and run short-term promotional products based on the season, which ties into the drive to feel. Those Christmas coffees that Starbucks comes out with, would cater to the drive to feel like one is in the season of Christmas, also perhaps to feel good and feel festive. In the business context, when we look at how we could, the communication or promotional offer that we could be looking at, are potentially the bulk discount rates based on, longer contract terms based on order volume and service level agreements when it comes to third-party logistics, and how companies can offer flexibility in order to help their partners operate at a higher efficiency and hopefully make more money. So, and that caters into, the drive to acquire. So the drive to acquire more influence for the seller of the 3PL logistics to cater to the drive to acquire for their potential customer, because if they do a good job, the other person gets more influence because they've made the right decision amongst their peers. Therefore, their influence and clout potentially increases within their business community within their company. The other one is the drive to bond. So if the 3PL does a super awesome job of making this other guy look good, that person can then potentially have a better bond with their boss or their colleagues because they've made right decisions, they've increased the level of trust within their company. And also the drive to feel, so from making successful decisions by hiring the right 3PL company, they can potentially feel very excited and good about themselves. So when it comes to digital marketing, how does this all play a part in basically getting better results business-wise, bottom line-wise? There are various things that one can do. So if we're looking at the personal context or the consumer context, if Starbucks wanted to promote their coffees, we'd be looking at obviously catering to the various personas that we've created, and using channels like social media, potentially using influencers, and having them promote the coffees, and catering to, the sneezers or the coffee enthusiasts, the people who actually, will travel very, very far just to try various types of coffee, and the people who are super passionate about it. And, these people are very, easy to reach. There's platforms like Facebook where you can cater to people who have coffee interests based on their online behavior, especially within Google as well. You have various food and beverage type interests which you can cater to in order to drive awareness campaigns and enter people into the funnel, and then cater to them with potential content marketing, EDMs. There's so many online channels for that. I think more interestingly as well, when you're looking at the business context, and if you're a 3PL, what kind of marketing do you do in order to reach, this very specific group of people within companies? So I think, it would be a very close coordination between the marketing team in order to generate awareness among this small group of people that you would find within brands and companies that, like the ops managers, the logistics and supply chain guys and gals. You want to generate leads for your sales team for them to potentially follow up if your 3PL has a sales team. So it's very much about how many leads can you get from, your target audience in the fastest and cheapest possible way. One way would be to utilize LinkedIn. LinkedIn now has targeting where we can upload people's emails, especially business emails. So if you're looking to target specific people within a business, if you had a list which you could easily purchase from various companies which collect these lists and upload it into Facebook, you'll be able to target, very specific messages to these people directly. Now, if you're not going to utilize LinkedIn, because perhaps the penetration rate for LinkedIn within Thailand is not as high as other countries, we're looking at, buying these lists and feeding that to the sales team of these people who are within these companies in order for them to get in touch with them directly, and then try to set up a meeting and then meet with the key stakeholders and then try to close, more deals that way in terms of new partners and customers. So, yep. That is my long-winded answer to that question. Obviously, it's such a loaded question. There's so much more that we could potentially say, but for the sake of keeping it short, I hope that it's of value to you. And if anyone else has enjoyed this content, please leave a question in the comments, and hopefully we'll pick it up next week as we do every week. Thank you very much.